The sun burned hot over the alien auction floor. A large crowd moved through the open cages, shouting and pointing. Traders, rich buyers, and cruel collectors looked for slaves, pets, or meat. The air smelled like sweat, metal, and blood in the ease. Last cage near the corner, something strange stood quietly. A giant girl tall as two men with blue-gray skin and glowing eyes. Her arms were strong, legs thick, but her back was full of scars. Chains were tight around her wrists and neck like she was a monster. A red label hung from her collar. Too big to breed, for slaughter only. People walked by her, laughing or whispering. Who would want that thing? One said. She's only muscle, no value, said another. She can't even bear young, what a waste. She didn't look at them, didn't speak. She just stood there, eyes on the sky, as if waiting for something else. Something better, but nothing better ever came. Only the butcher truck was coming next. At the edge of the auction, a human man stood quietly. He wore simple clothes, dusty boots, and a cap low over his eyes. He looked out of place, too small in a sea of large creatures and loud traders, but his eyes, sharp and calm, were watching one thing. The girl in the corner cage. The auctioneer shouted from the stage. Next one, female, strong build, no breed value, marked for meat. Starting. Bid no bid? No problem. She goes to the grinder in 10 minutes. A group of buyers laughed. No one wants her, just send her to the pit. Yeah, too much meat on that one. Still, the human didn't move. He waited, watched, and finally stepped forward. The guards stopped him. You lost, human? One asked. This area isn't for your kind. I'm here for her, he said, pointing to the girl. The guards looked confused. You want that? She's slaughter property. I'll buy her, he said quietly, showing a chip. Full price. The guards laughed but took the chip anyway. Paperwork was signed fast. No one cared. One less problem for them. The cage door creaked open. The girl didn't move. She looked down at the human, confused. He looked back up at her and whispered, You're not meat. You're coming with me. She blinked, as if not understanding the words. No one had spoken to her like that, not ever. Not since she was taken from her birth house and judged as unfit. She had heard only orders, screams, and insults. But this man, his voice was soft, calm, like she was someone. The guards removed her chains, but roughly. Don't crush him, one said, laughing as he walked away. She followed the human, slowly, unsure. Her large feet made the ground shake as she moved. People stared, whispered, and mocked, but she didn't stop. He led her to a small transport pod parked near the edge of the auction lot. No guards, no cages, just an open door and a soft light inside. He climbed in, turned, and held out a hand. She looked at it, then at him, hesitated, then placed her hand in his, her fingers 5 times the size of his. He didn't flinch. Inside the pod, he gave her a blanket. She sat in silence, legs pulled close to her chest. He handed her a small piece of fruit. She stared at it, unsure. If it was a trick, then took it, slowly biting. Her eyes filled with water, but she didn't let a tear fall. Outside, the auction moved on. Inside the pod, something else began. A strange peace, a silent promise, and deep inside the giant girl's heart, a voice she had buried long ago whispered. The truck was cold, made of metal and rust. Inside, other creatures sat with dead eyes, waiting for their turn to die. Some were old, some broken, some silent. All of them were labeled the same. Flesh only. Just like her. The giant girl sat in the corner, knees pulled to her chest. Her body filled the space, shoulders scraping the walls with every bump in the road. She said nothing, just held the fruit pit from earlier. The human had given it to her like it meant something, like she meant something, but now he was gone. And the label still burned on her shoulder. The red mark, the cruel stamp. Meat. A loud hiss of steam opened the back gate. Guards shouted, pushing the creatures out one by one. Move, animals. Time to be useful for once. She stood slowly, and the others backed away. Even now they were afraid of her size, but fear didn't stop the chain, didn't stop the factory waiting beyond. The gate outside, the air smelled sharper, like burning hair and boiled bone. She knew this smell. It was death. The guards barked again, but then one paused. He held up a data pad and stared. "Hold on," he muttered. "She's not on the list. Wasn't she stamped yesterday?" Another asked. The first one checked again, frowning. Her ownership was changed this morning. What? Who would buy that thing? Before they could say more, footsteps approached. Boots, light ones walking fast. Then a voice, calm and firm. "She's mine." The guards turned, surprised to see the human again. Dust on his shirt, quiet eyes. No weapons, no army, just him. "Check your logs," he said. Her ID was transferred, paid full value, legal clean. The guard scanned the tablet again, frowning. "Why would you want her?" one asked. "She's marked. Useless." The human stepped forward, not angry, not loud, just steady. "She's not meat. She's a person." The guards laughed but backed off. "Whatever your risk," one said. "Just don't come crying when she breaks your bones." She watched from behind the gate, still frozen. Not sure. If she could believe what was happening. He came back, he really came back. The gate opened slowly and he reached out again. His hand was small, soft but strong in its own way. She looked down at it, remembering the last time. And again. She took it. They walked together, through the silent watchers, past blood-stained floors. No one stopped them, but everyone stared. A giant creature and a tiny man, one marked for slaughter, the other refusing to let it happen. Back in his transport pod, she sat quietly, still holding that fruit pit. He started the engine but didn't say a word for a long time. Then finally he asked, "Do you have a name?" She shook her head. "I was never given one," she whispered, her voice deep and soft. "They just called me Stock 891. He nodded like he understood something deep. "Then I'll call you Vera." Her eyes widened. "Vera? In my language it means brave. Vera." The word felt strange in her mouth, soft, warm. A name. Her name. That night they camped under the stars. He gave her a thick blanket, not scared of her size, not disgusted by her scars. She sat beside the fire, staring at the flames, and he cooked something that smelled warm and real. "Why me?" she asked at last. He looked at her with calm eyes. "I saw something," he said. "Something no one else did. You were standing there, ready to die, but your eyes were still alive. I couldn't walk away." She looked down at the ground, hands trembling. "I'm not worth saving," she whispered. "I was made wrong. I don't belong anywhere." He didn't argue, didn't give a speech. He just reached out and placed his hand gently on hers. "Now you do," he said. "You belong with me." The fire cracked, the night silent around them, and in the stillness, something inside Vera began to shift. For the first time in her life, she felt more than pain, more than fear. She felt safe. The road to his home was long and quiet. Outside the pod window, stars moved slowly in the sky. Vera sat in silence, her huge body curled as small as it could go. The name still echoed in her mind. Vera, not Stock 891, not meat, a name, just for her. The human, she still didn't know his name, drove the pod without saying much. Not because he didn't care, but because he didn't force her to speak. He let her sit in silence, and somehow, that made her feel more seen than words ever had. They landed on a small moon, dry and quiet. No big cities, no guards, no slave markets, just hills, wind, and a little house made of stone and steel. He opened the door for her, then stepped aside. "This is home," he said. "You're safe here." Vera stepped in carefully, afraid she might break something. The ceiling was low for her, and the hallway narrow, but it smelled clean, like old wood, metal tools, and something cooking. She looked around, unsure where to go, He pointed to a thick mattress near the wall, covered in soft cloth. You can sleep there. Vera looked at the bed, then back at him. No floor? She asked quietly. He shook his head. Not unless you want to. You don't belong on the floor anymore. That night she sat on the edge of the bed, watching him move around. He made a simple meal, handed her a large plate without fear. Her hands trembled as she took it. Thank you, she said, voice rough, unused to kindness. He smiled. You're welcome. Days passed and she slowly learned his name, Jalen. He was a repairman, lived alone, fixed old machines from nearby settlements. He never asked her to work, never told her what to do, but Vera started helping anyway. She lifted heavy tools, cleaned the workshop, carried water, anything to feel useful, to repay the quiet man who had saved her life. Jalen taught her his language one word at a time. He would point to objects and say the name, chair, tool, bread. She repeated each word, slowly, carefully, like it was a treasure. And when she made mistakes, he never laughed. He only smiled. You're learning, he said. That's all that matters. One evening, she caught her reflection in the polished metal wall. She stared at her own face. So big, so strange, so scarred. She touched her jaw, remembering the chains, the beatings, the stamp on her shoulder. I'm not like others, she said softly, to Jalen, who stood nearby. I was built for weight, not beauty. Jalen put down his tool and looked at her carefully. Who told you that mattered? She blinked, unsure how to answer. He stepped closer, not afraid. You're strong, smart kind. You help without being asked. None of those are mistakes. And beauty, real beauty, has nothing to do with breeding charts. Vera lowered her eyes, not because she was ashamed, but because his words reached places in her heart that had never been touched. No one had ever said those things to her. No one had ever believed in her like that. That night, she didn't cry, but she stayed awake, listening to the quiet hum of Jalen's tools in the next room. And for the first time, she felt something warm grow in her chest. Not fear, not shame. Something else. Trust. But peace never stays forever. One morning, while Vera was helping carry parts from the storage shed, Jalen's comm device buzzed. He picked it up, face turning serious as he listened. Jalen, the voice said, we got a visitor asking about a transport from auction grounds last week. Says he's tracking stolen meat. Jalen's jaw tightened. He thanked the caller and turned slowly to Vera. She saw the worry in his eyes before he said a word. They're coming, he said. They know you're here. Vera didn't speak. Her hands curled into fists, muscles tense. She was ready to run, ready to fight. But Jalen stepped closer. No, he said softly. We're not running. Not this time. And for the first time she believed it, because this wasn't just a hiding place anymore, this was home and she was no longer alone. The wind howled outside Jalen's small home. Dust rose over the hills, sweeping against the stone walls. Inside, Vera stood near the doorway, still and silent. Her massive frame filled the entrance like a living statue. Jalen sat on the floor, staring at the door, thinking. They'll come soon, he said, voice calm but tight. They always do once they smell a reason. Vera didn't move. She knew how these people worked. They didn't care about papers or truth. They only saw her size, her label, meat, and now they would come to claim what they thought was theirs. I'll go, she whispered suddenly. Jalen looked up quickly. No, he said, standing. This is your home now. You're in danger, Vera said, eyes lowered. They'll hurt you because of me. He stepped forward, placing a hand on her arm. Let them try, he said, voice soft but full of fire. They can take machines, tools, even my walls, but they won't take you. Her breath caught in her throat. No one had ever chosen her. People only bought her, owned her, used her. But this man, he chose her. Later that evening, Vera tried to rest. She sat on the soft mattress, the one Jalen insisted was hers, but her body wouldn't relax. Her mind kept playing old memories, Cold cages, sharp collars, shouted numbers, the way they laughed when they measured her. Too big, too wide, too much. She stood up and walked to the corner, choosing the cold floor. It felt more familiar, more correct, less shameful. Jalen woke in the middle of the night. He heard soft sounds, muffled breathing, not quite crying. He found her curled in the corner, blanket untouched, arms wrapped around her knees. She looked up quickly when he entered. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I didn't mean to disturb you." "You're not disturbing me," he said gently, sitting beside her. "You're not meant to sleep on the floor anymore." "I don't belong in a bed," she said, voice flat. "I break things, I take too much space. I was made to carry weight, not rest." Jalen leaned back against the wall, letting the silence stretch. Then he said quietly, "When I was younger, I broke a lot of things too. Not with my size, but with my hands, my anger. I used to think I didn't deserve peace either." Vera turned to look at him. "You?" He nodded, eyes on the dark ceiling. "I did bad things. Let people down, lost everything. This place, this work, it was my second chance, and now, you're part of it too." Vera stared at him, not sure what to say. He wasn't perfect, not a hero, not a warrior, but he was kind and honest, and in his presence, she didn't feel like a tool. She felt human. "Thank you," she whispered. He looked at her, confused. For what? For not looking away? The next morning, Vera helped in the workshop. She moved heavy crates like they weighed nothing. Jalen showed her how to check circuit boards, how to read warning lights. She was clumsy at first. Her fingers too big for the small parts, but she learned fast, and when she made mistakes, he didn't yell. He just laughed and showed her again. Later, while sorting supplies, she found a cracked mirror under a pile of wires. She held it up, staring at her reflection, the scars, the thick skin, the tired eyes. She tilted the glass and caught a different view. Jalen working beside her, sweat on his brow, smile on his face, and beside him, her. Not just a shadow, not just a tool, but a person. She touched the mirror, her voice barely a whisper. Vera. Her name sounded stronger this time, real, like it belonged to someone. That night, as stars filled the sky above their quiet moon. She stood outside the small home, arms folded, eyes on the road. Jalen came up beside her, holding 2 cups of warm tea. "They'll be here soon," she said. He handed her a cup. "Let them come," he said. "She's not afraid anymore." She looked at him, then down at the cup. Steam rose into the cold air. She took a sip, the heat burning her tongue slightly. It felt good. It felt alive. In the distance, the dust began to rise. Engines, lights, trouble. But she stood tall. No chains, no collar, just her name and the man who gave it to her. The next morning came with silence. No noise, no shouting, just the low hum of machines. Vera opened her eyes before the sun rose over the hills. She sat up slowly on the mattress, still surprised it didn't break under her weight. Jalen was already in the workshop working with wires and old tools morning, he said with a small smile. "Hungry?" She nodded, rubbing her eyes like a child. "I'll make breakfast," he said, standing up and stretching. No rush. Vera followed him to the small kitchen, ducking under the doorway like always. Her steps were careful, her large feet, making the floor creak, but Jalen never seemed to mind. He never looked at her with fear, only with trust. As they sat down to eat, she glanced at his hands, rough, scarred, full of calluses, but gentle. He moved like someone who had once been broken but chose to fix things instead of destroy them. "Can I ask you something?" she said softly. "Anything," he replied, sipping his drink. "Why did you really take me?" He looked up slowly, not shocked by the question. He placed his cup down, thinking before he spoke. "I grew up on a mining colony," he said, voice low. "We were taught that if something was broken or ugly or didn't work right, we threw it away. My brother was born sick, couldn't walk straight. They tried to send him off-world to a medical unit, but that unit never existed. Vera's hands tightened around her cup. I tried to stop them, Jalen continued, but I was small, weak. I still remember how he looked at me when they took him, like he knew I couldn't save him. He looked into her eyes now, steady. When I saw you in that cage, it felt the same. I couldn't lose someone again. Vera didn't know what to say. She stared at her plate, chest tight. No one ever said I was worth saving, she whispered. Well, they were wrong, he said simply. You're still here. That means something. Later that day, Vera worked outside, stacking metal panels near the shed. She moved with quiet power like a living mountain. Children from the nearby town peeked from a hill, pointing at her and giggling. She turned and waved awkwardly. They screamed and ran. Her hand dropped slowly. Jalen came out with a wrench, wiping sweat from his forehead. They'll come around, he said gently. They've never seen anyone like you before. Because I'm not supposed to be seen, Vera said. I was made in a breeding facility. They didn't name us. They just measured us. Jalen stood still, letting her speak. I was too big. My body didn't match what they wanted. They said I couldn't produce like others. So I was thrown into labor, then discarded. She lifted her sleeve and showed him the faded brand on her shoulder. Burned deep, crooked, a cruel mark of ownership. Flesh only, it read. His jaw clenched, but he said nothing. Instead, he stepped forward, slowly, and reached out with a cloth, gently covering the scar. That's not who you are anymore, he said. She looked at him, confused. That scar, he continued, is not your identity. It's just a wound. And wounds heal. Vera's lips trembled. She had never cried in front of anyone, but now her chest burned with so much feeling it leaked out without permission. A single tear rolled down her cheek, thick and hot. He didn't mock it, didn't look away. Instead, he placed his hand on her arm. Your strength is not the problem. The way they treated you was. That night, Vera sat by the fire outside, staring at the stars. Jalen handed her a thin book with cracked pages. What's this? She asked. A story, he said. About someone different who changed everything. She turned the pages carefully, the words simple, but powerful. A hero who didn't look like the others, but saved them all anyway. As she read, she felt something in her chest. Not pain, not fear, but possibility. Inside her, the scar was still there, but it didn't feel as deep. It didn't own her anymore. And sitting beside the man who gave her a name, she felt more than hope. She felt human. The sky turned dark before the sun was fully gone. Storm clouds rolled across the moon's hills like silent shadows. Vera stood outside, arms crossed, eyes locked on the road. Jalen worked inside the house, unaware of what was coming, but she could feel it. Her breath was steady, her heart slow. She had known fear her whole life, but now it wasn't fear that filled her. It was something sharper. Instinct. A low rumble echoed in the distance. Engines, big ones, not from the town, not from delivery transports. She stepped inside calmly. They're here, she said. Jalen looked up from the table. He didn't ask who. He just nodded, reached under the drawer, and pulled out a pulse pistol. I was hoping we'd have more time, he muttered. Vera shook her head. They won't talk. They'll take. By the time the black vehicle rolled into the yard, the air was tense. 4 men stepped out. 2 were armed. 1 wore a scanner visor. The 4th was the loudest, a thin man with a cruel smile and gold teeth. He looked around the yard like he already owned it. Jalen stepped outside first, his hands visible, weapon tucked away. Can I help you? He asked. The gold-toothed man grinned. We're here for the asset you took from Auction District 7. She's not an asset, Jalen said flatly. She's a person. That's not how the registry sees it, the man replied, tapping. His wrist scanner, slaughter tag still active, ownership transfer under review. Illegal if you ask me. I didn't ask, Jalen said. Behind him, Vera stepped into view. The men froze when they saw her, towering, wide-shouldered, scars visible even in the fading light. She doesn't belong to anyone, Jalen continued. Leave. Goldtooth smiled wider. You think we're here to talk? She's marked for flesh. She's company property. He nodded at one of the armed men. Grab her. The man raised his rifle and took a step forward. Vera didn't move, but her eyes narrowed. One more step, and she'd break him. Jalen stepped in front of her, hands up. Don't do this, he warned. I paid full value, I followed protocol. The rifle fired. A stun shot slammed into Jalen's chest. He dropped to the ground with a gasp, body twitching. Vera's scream shook the dirt, not fear, rage. She charged before they could fire again. Her foot slammed into the first guard's chest, launching him backward into the truck. Metal crumpled like paper. The second guard aimed, but she grabbed his arm and snapped it like dry wood. He dropped the weapon and hit the ground hard, the scanner. Man tried to run. Vera grabbed a nearby crate and hurled it like a stone. It hit him square in the back, knocking him out cold. Goldtooth stood frozen, hands up now, all his power gone in seconds. I was just following orders, he stuttered. I didn't shoot him. Vera walked up to him slowly, her breath, heavy, eyes burning. He fell to his knees, begging. I'm nobody. I'm just the mouthpiece. I don't make decisions. Please. Vera leaned down, her face close to his. You hurt what's mine, she growled. Leave and don't come back. He scrambled up, ran to the truck, dragging the others with him. The engine roared and they disappeared into the dust. Vera ran to Jalen, dropping to her knees. His eyes flickered open, weak but alive. Vera, he whispered. You stayed. I told you I would, she said, voice shaking. You're mine now, too. She lifted him carefully and carried him inside, placing him on the bed. She cleaned his wound, applied salve, wrapped the burn. Her hands trembled, not from fear, but from how close she'd come to losing him. That night he slept. But Vera sat beside him, watching over him like a guardian. No longer the one being protected, but the one doing the protecting. Outside the storm passed, the stars returned, and inside so did peace. Vera looked down at him and whispered the words he once said to her, You belong with me. Jalen woke to soft light shining through the window. His head hurt, chest sore, but he was breathing. The scent of cooked food filled the room, mixed with clean linen and warm air. He blinked slowly, trying to sit up. Don't, Vera said. Gently, she stood by the bed holding a bowl of broth in her large hands. Her eyes were tired but calm. I made this, she added almost shyly. Eat. He managed a small smile. You cook now? Only when my human nearly dies, she said softly, a hint of teasing in her voice. Jalen chuckled, then winced. Still hurts. Good, she said, placing the bowl down. Means you're alive. He reached out slowly, touching her hand. Thank you, Vera, for saving me. Her hand closed around his, careful not to squeeze too hard. I didn't save you, she said. You saved me first. That day, no one came. No ships, no hunters, no threats. The word had spread. Whatever they thought Vera was, she wasn't weak and she wasn't alone. Vera spent the day fixing the broken fence, moving debris from the yard. Jalen sat nearby with a blanket over his shoulders, guiding her when needed. Their teamwork had become natural now, like breathing. In the evening, as the twin moons rose, Jalen stood on the porch. Vera joined him, her massive frame casting a long shadow over the ground. For a long time, neither of them spoke. Then Jalen said, You could leave now, you know. No one's chasing you anymore. You could find your own place, your own people. Vera shook her head slowly. I already did, she said, looking at him. You're my people. He smiled, then looked down, nervous. I'm just one person. You're the first person who looked at me like I was more than a body. The first one who didn't flinch. The first one who gave me a name. They sat down together side by side on the porch steps. The stars above sparkled like diamonds. Soft wind moved through the hills. peaceful and slow. I used to dream about being smaller, Vera admitted quietly, about fitting in, about being normal. And now? Jalen asked. Now I don't care, she said, voice firm. I don't want to be small. I want to be what I am. And I want to be that with you. Later that night, Vera stood in front of the mirror again. She traced the faded scar on her shoulder, the brand that once meant death, now just a mark from another life. Jalen stepped into the room, still limping slightly. You okay? He asked. She nodded, then looked at him through the mirror. I was property, she said. Then I was nothing. Then I was dangerous. But with you, I became someone. Jalen walked closer, placing a hand on her back. You were always someone, he said. They just didn't see it. She turned to face him. And you did. He smiled gently. I saw you the moment you looked up through that cage. I didn't see an animal. I saw someone trying not to. Give up. I almost did, she whispered, and then you whispered, you belong with me. He looked into her eyes and nodded. I meant it then. I mean it now. Vera stepped forward, leaning down until their foreheads touched. Soft, still, calm. Two very different people, one bond. In the morning, they worked together again. Vera fixing panels, Jalen sorting wires. They laughed more now, teased each other. It wasn't just survival anymore, it was life. The nearby children stopped running. One of them even waved at her from a distance. She waved back gently, not afraid, not ashamed. The wind moved over the land again, but this time it brought peace, not fear. Inside her, the scar still remained, but it didn't define her. Not anymore now. She had a name, a home, a voice, and someone who never asked her to change. He had whispered it first, but now she whispered it back. As he walked past her in the hallway, smiling at something small, she whispered, You belong with me.